Mark has been handed something resembling a photograph. We're looking at pictures. Let's see what we've got here. We have random blue guy.
I don't know what his name was either.
Young lady
That was fun,
with a very long Revolutionary War style musket.
Firing a black powder musket.
Did you fire one?
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
What was it like firing a musket was this in Nova Scotia?
It was fantastic. Oh yeah, I could tell a story about that experience. That would be
How much kick is there to the musket?
Virtually none, because there's no projectile. It's just blanks.
Oh,
so it's
what fun is that?
Well, it was inside a theme park, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Where idiot people walk up the
Yeah, well,
that's the whole point of live ammo.
No, that was us. We walked up right at the end of where they were pointing somebody else. Yeah, we didn't know any better. But
very nice.
It was cool. It's deceiving how heavy they are. It's deceiving how long they are. You're holding on this rifle and it feels like it's 12 feet long because it's just such a massively long barrel.
So before we moved down to where my mother lives now, we lived up on the hill, sort of more north of Sydenham, and my stepfather had a large musket hanging over the mantelpiece, and it was supposedly plugged until one day when my mother wasn't there, he showed me that it was never plugged to begin with, and he fired it for us. And of course, there was black powder and stuff, and he had balls because he hunted with black powder.
Yeah, muzzle loading season is still a thing.
Yeah, right? So the first time I went turkey hunting, we used black powder rifles. And I said, how come you don't use scopes? And he said, if you can't hit it with the regular gun, you don't deserve to be shooting anyway. So I said, okay. So that was quite fun. Except the modern black powder ones, they don't have the hammer or anything like that. It's just they have like a socket thing that you put it in. You like preloaded little charges you put in it. So
yeah. So this was at the Louisbourg Fort in Nova Scotia, and I can't remember what they charged. Was it $40? So if we'll say $45, I think they put fresh powder in the pan. We reset and I do it again. Click, nothing, no spark, twice in a row. So then some other guy comes in there that I guess must oversee the firearms. He's like their quartermaster of sorts. So anyway, he came in, and while I'm standing there, he changes out the flint on the musket itself, and it only took him a couple of minutes to do. And then they set it all up again, and sure enough, and they finally pulled the trigger, bang! And it was just this, from my perspective, all I could see was this blast of white smoke that came up from the pan, and of course out the muzzle as well. But I only noticed the bright flash and then the plume of smoke that came out from where the gunpowder was laying in the pan. And it's over, of course, in a blink of an eye. But which is cool because you can, if you look at it and you watch it in video, you see the spark and the plume of smoke come off the pan, kind of like at a 45-degree angle, and then moments later it's out the barrel, which was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
It was a thrill, just
that would be pretty
loud bang and lots of smoke and smell of gunpowder. And
so you can
big
imagine
grin on your face.
You can imagine 300 infantrymen standing on a hill, all firing simultaneously.
Well, once every 3 minutes.
All that. Well, during the Napoleonic Wars, the riflers could fire 3 shots a minute.
Yeah.
And for the first shot, they'd prime it and all that sort of stuff. And then they'd put the gun down. They'd roll the ball down. They wouldn't use the ramrod. They would knock their butt against the ground. And they put just enough in, because at that point, the enemy's close enough. All you want to do is get a shot off and hope you hit them. So, but that would have been kind of terrifying.
Yeah, they even demonstrated using the ramrod, because what they do when they're about to load is they actually throw the ramrod down the barrel, and they're listening for the ping when it bounces off the bottom of the back of the chamber. It tells them that it's empty, it's clear, and they do that before they set up to load it. And they explain that that's why they were doing it. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be like that.
Well, there's also stories of them
with real world use, I should say.
Yeah, when they would run out of ammunition, they'd wait till the guys are this distance, and they'd put the the charge in. They'd have no musket ball. They put the ramrod in, and they'd fire it. And sometimes it would shoot out and hit somebody, but that would be their last line of defense. If you took the thing in the eye, it would probably hurt a lot, but I imagine it would probably just bounce off you in some capacity.
I absolutely wanted to fire the
Yeah.
cannon, but it was a lot more money.
How much was it to fire the cannon?
It was, yeah,
Can you fire it at people?
No, pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure it's also blanks.
How much to buy it?
But it was actually a really good experience. Other than that, because that was all over and done inside of 10 minutes. But they do their own little ceremony at noon, and at the end of the day, where they and it's all French actually, which is another thing too. It's all designed to be as a French settlement and French fort back when it was in operation, and it's only about 60% or so that's actually still there. That's
Mhm.
been rebuilt. But the reenactors were really good at drawing in the crowd, getting them involved, right?
Mm.
And at after the noon hour cannon firing, they have a demonstration of punishment for somebody who was deemed a criminal, you know, which is something you can also pay for as a guest. You can pay whatever it was. I think it was about $30, and you make up something you got caught for or what have you. And they dress you in this long prisoner's gown, and then they walk you in like unlocked manacles as they would down the path through into the store or into the center of the town. It wasn't a mayor. I can't remember the name. But anyway, the guy in charge of running the fort, he would read off all the charges and everything like that. And meanwhile, they're encouraging the crowd, like us, to yell shame and you know, make a big deal about calling out this so-called criminal, right? And so that was in there too, and I was right into it. I was like, shame! This is just like Game of Thrones. Shame! Like, except I'm really glad that guy's not naked. The kids were not. They didn't know what to do. So I was like, I'm going to make up for them. The guy walks by and I said, you are lucky I don't have a bag of rotten tomatoes. Something like that. It's fun to get right into it.
Sounds like a good time.
It was fun. What else did we do while we were there? We went to one of their little eateries that they had set up in the village part of the fort, and it was all like as original as they could make it. So you'd sit down on these like hand hewn wood benches and tables. And it's just like handmade tablecloths that are on there. You've got a serving girl that is coming to the table to take orders, and they have a full menu, but it's very basic. Like your only utensil you get is a spoon, because those are the only utensils that they would have been allowed. We found out after that there was actually two sides to the restaurant. One side was for like the common folk, which is the one that we went into.
It's like a McDonald's.
And then on the other side, it was more for the town elite, and it was nicer tables and better dressed, and you had to have reservations to actually go and sit there. Whereas the other one was just a big open room with a bunch of tables, like you would consider an old tavern to be.
Right.
And and I had a beer. What else did I order? It was a burger, but it was very basic. It was good, but it was like bun, patty, lettuce, tomato. There was no such thing as ketchup, right? Because back then they didn't have that. There was, or I assume anyway, there was none of that.
Ketchup was a late invention.
And then there was like fries, right? But it was very, very, very basic. And let's see, Kira, she got like a whole plate of mussels while she was in there. I'm not a fan of mussels or oysters, but she gobbled them down. I'm like, I don't know how you can do that, but
especially a restaurant like that, yes, it's on the coast, but I don't know if I'd trust the.
But it was really cool. It was neat. There was no light in it, like because there's no lights on in that time period, right? They would have been lanterns, and only at night. So in the middle of the day, it's still kind of dim and dark inside the little tavern place. But it was cool. I wish we had more time while we were there, actually, because we didn't get a chance to see everything. But anyway, that's very much off topic of what we had planned for
Well,
today.
it's a good topic. Ryan,
Ad-libbed as the unexpected guest walks downstairs.
Well, Ryan didn't go on the vacation, but where would you go, Ryan, if you could drive?
If I could drive
Like, say you have
the East Coast, I'd
Or-
like to see the Bay of Fundy. I think
Ah.
that would be interesting to see the tides.
We were in the Bay of Fundy.
That would be very interesting. Did you see the tides come in and out?
No, the part that got me, because that's kind of what I was expecting. I thought, oh, we'll be able to actually watch the tide come in, but it wasn't quite like that. Because I don't have a lot of experience with oceans. I thought, okay, you'll be able to see the tide come in or the tide go out. And I think if you probably had a chance to stand there for a good hour or more, you
Oh yeah,
probably
it would take a while.
right? But when we were traveling around, it was either the tide was out or the tide was in. There wasn't a time where you could tell beyond a doubt whether it was coming in
Mhm.
or going out, unless you were from the area and you just knew, the cycle. But for us, inlanders or whatever, we had no idea. Mainlanders, inlanders, outlanders, I don't care.
Walking on the ocean
were
floor would be interesting.
non-maritime people.
Yeah. Non-Atlanteans.
But Hopewell Rocks is in the Bay of Fundy.
Yeah.
And that was really cool.
Walking on the ocean floor.
Yeah.
There would be interesting.
We were,
And then several hours later, have the water be 30 to 40 feet high.
I probably have pictures I could show you, but
I
When
just
we-
want to see the ocean.
I was disappointed at Hopewell Rocks because the ocean is brown. It's not blue, it's not green, it's not pretty actually. It's brown because of all the silt in the water that gets stirred up every day, right? So when we got there, it was high tide or becoming close to high tide, where you couldn't walk down on the ocean floor because it was, of course, all covered in ocean. Surprise!
You heard it here, folks. The ocean is covered in ocean.
but yeah, it was kind of a letdown because it was like, okay, so what? These are just rocks protruding from the ocean, and the water is brown. It's not the most picturesque out there. But then on the return trip, when we stopped and the water was out, we got there just as they have a window of so long where you're allowed to go out onto the ocean floor, and that was different. It was cool. All of the rocks on the ground were covered in these, like, this black, stringy seaweed of sorts, but the seaweed all had these little pods on the ends of them, and these little pods were filled with water.
How big? Like
the pods?
Yeah, like globe size?
No, they're like the size of grapes, maybe.
Yeah, because
These, like, you could grab them, you could squish them. They were firm, but you'd squish them, and it would just be like seawater trapped inside. That's how the plant stays hydrated when the tide's out, right? But what was also weird too is that they were black, but on the outside. If you were to take a chunk of them and flip them over, they were green underneath because they weren't exposed to the sunlight, I guess. I don't know. I didn't ask anybody there if that was because of the sun or not. I just assumed, but it was really cool. There was probably 200, 300 feet of shore that was, like, revealed after the ocean receded on low tide, and you could walk a long ways, a lot farther than what I thought. We were probably an hour on the shore, or on the ocean bed, just checking out the different rock formations. And the rock is weird too because it's like, if you were to think of particle board, like wood particle board, how it's little bits and pieces that are, like, smushed together in form, that's what the rock looks like. Except it's in, like, layers, and you can see the different types of sizes of pebble. It almost looks like cement. And then, of course, that same stuff is what's all over the ground, like on the ocean floor, because it's eroded and fallen under the bottom. And but it was weird. You could walk under these massive columns, and some areas you got to stay off of because of falling rock and stuff like that. They got signs It was cool.
Other than the Bay of Fundy, though, what?
No idea.
No idea.
Just east. This
It's
is the
just so
ocean.
different. That's what I liked about it. It was so different than what we're used to. Even though we're, Lake Ontario, we're used to having the body of water there. It doesn't compare to the ocean.
Yeah.
And being in the ocean too. Like we didn't go swimming, because we didn't have a lot of great weather, but we did get into the ocean a little bit. It's frickin' cold.
Yeah,
Like
I've heard that.
the kids didn't care because they're kids, but me, if it's not 80 degrees, like I'm 2 hours just getting myself up the nerve to get in the water beyond knees.
Did you go on PEI on the beaches at all, or?
Yeah, both we went in Nova Scotia and in a PEI. I mean, it's cold either way.
Mhm.
They had the water temperature in PEI. They had it on the board when we went to the beach, and it was 20 degrees.
Are the potatoes as good as everybody says?
Yes,
And you can
They-
find them at the end of almost every single driveway. It's
And that was
new
the thing.
potatoes, $5.
While I was there, I said, while we were on PEI, I have to have potatoes with every meal. Like it was just going to be the thing, and they were fantastic there.
I will say you can also buy the exact same bag of potatoes, literally the same bag, at your neighborhood Walmart.
We went grocery shopping when we came home, and of course we needed potatoes. So I'm like, okay, we're not leaving here without PEI potatoes because we just came back from PEI. Could I find any potatoes that were sourced from PEI at the grocery store? No.
We bought
None.
them as trying to think. There was a place right before the bridge, like a great big touristy place. We pulled in there,
Disappointed.
and they
crushed.
had one bag of potatoes left, and so we went into the cow dairy store and got change and then paid for the potatoes. So we had that the first night back. We had potatoes from PEI. But I'm a red potato guy myself, so I like red potatoes, but not any disservice to the people of PEI. But
Where we stopped at Cavendish, just around the corner from where the little cabin was that we had rented for the few days. There was a restaurant there. We decided to go there for dinner on the first night that we were there, and they were having like one of those every dish had like a side of mashed potatoes, and I don't know what it is that they put in those mashed potatoes, but they were the best mashed potatoes I've ever had by far. I can't even remember the name of the restaurant. I was just flabbergasted at the taste of the fresh PEI potatoes.
turns out it's just like butter and salt.
They were probably freeze dried. I don't know. They could have been, but they were tasty. So
But you'd like the roads there, especially Newfoundland, because you just have winding mountain roads, straight stretches. It's just very, very little cars.
well, we decided that the next time we go, it's just going to be the two of us that go, and we're taking the car because there is a lot of nice roads to drive.
Won't the gas bill be nuts?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
That could be a $300 before you got to the other side of Quebec.
I don't care. It might be worth it.
Fair enough. Fair
It
enough.
would be fun. It'd be an
Even
interesting
New
drive.
Brunswick, the New Brunswick highways were awesome. Like perfect condition, no potholes, no bumps, ruts, or anything like that. It was now if you're on the highways and the main roads, I'm
Mhm.
sure the side roads are less.
So coming
Right.
off the bridge, if you went right in New Brunswick and up the Acadian Trail,
We did for a time on the way home.
that was terrible.
It was bad, yes. Yeah.
I was because I had a bit of highway hypnosis going on after coming off the bridge, and I was just sailing down this thing, and the kids in the back, there's really bumpy back here. I'm like, oh shit. But yeah, well, when we go to Scotland next year, you'll be able to see what it's like being on a Highland double-decker bus going down very similar roads to that, and the driver's just bouncing around having a great time, and you're in the top just falling over each other.
I think that's the only way to experience it.
Oh,
Would be on the upper deck.
it was awesome. It was awesome. But yeah, it was a good time. Good time. So you tried to do some camping in the East Coast,
Yes,
and how did that go?
less than perfect.
Elaborate.
It was just weather related, is all it was. We just didn't have great weather. I mentioned it earlier, I think, when we weren't recording, but it's such a ordeal to set up camps, tents with the kids and then my wife and I. It's just it inevitably boils down to some form of
The
argument,
good memories.
right?
Yes.
You know, it really it does, and it's just because everyone gets frustrated and they're tired, and the last thing they want to do is is work together to get a tent set up.
Well,
Kira, they did it fine. They set up their own tent. It's way too big, of course, and
like glamping level, or
oh yeah, this thing is probably would sleep comfortably 8 people, I would say, or more, and it's just the two of them in there on little sleeping pads, and but so they did okay, but it just
I could see camping in that on a car trip like that working if you had an SUV with one of those tents that are made for the SUV where it comes off the
yeah.
back of it.
The other problem, of course, is that we were doing a combination of camping
Mm.
and staying in hotels or what have you. So because we weren't taking a trailer or anything with us, it was just whatever we could fit into the back of the SUV. Packing and unpacking was a chore, and it I think it was decently packed twice, right? And then after that, everything was just heaved in wherever we
Yeah.
could find it, and heaved out when we needed it for the next day.
Yeah.
And it was just not great. If I were to do it again, um, I would put more things in totes than I did because we have the basket that we can hook onto the trailer hitch, right?
All
It
right.
sits out back behind the vehicle, and we drove the entire way out there with a couple of totes on it. But then it gets to a point where, well, we meet into the hatch, you know, and then it's like this thing's in the way. So after we got there, I said, okay, let's not drive around with this thing sticking way at the back of the vehicle. We'll just reorganize. We'll get everything packed in there, and then we'll just fold this thing up. It won't be in the way as we travel around the East Coast. But then that presents another problem because it's folded. So in order to get the hatch of the SUV up, guess what you got to do? You got to fold it down.
Seems like a very convenient product endorsement he's
Yeah.
giving here for this.
So it has nothing to do with the product. The product's fine. It was our use of it that was less than ideal. But I had visions of us parking somewhere and then someone coming along and smashing into it because it was down, not as visible, right? Especially when there's nothing piled into it. So yeah, every time we stopped, I'd fold down the stupid basket and then lift up the tailgate and then lower the tailgate, fold the basket back up. It was just
So you'd say our trips to Algonquin Park are a more pleasant camping experience.
well, it's simpler,
Yeah.
right? And one out of the three of us, we're all looking after our own stuff for the most part. You know, yeah, we share whatever.
Except when bags are thrown in the canoe when someone takes a kayak. Then we're taking care of.
It beats renting 2 canoes.
Sure, it does. Yeah.
So okay, so the next time we'll rent a bigger canoe and we'll all fit into it, and
We need
then
that
we'll decide.
We need that 10-person canoe we
And
saw.
then and then we can decide whether it's better to have a kayak or not.
I would almost. I would love to do a camp. I don't know how you guys think about it. I'd love to do a camping experience where it was minimalist. Like what do they call it? I'm using the wrong word. Lightweight,
Ultralight.
ultralight.
Ultralight. Yeah.
I don't know. Some of those people are pretty serious about that.
I kind of like a little bit of comfort, so ultralight might not work for me.
Because they use the tents that are, and it's also a great deal more expensive.
Depending
the
on the time of
stuff.
year,
Winter.
that would have an effect on it.
Winter?
For sure.
Yeah.
No,
I still want to go winter
I'll
camping.
wave at you from the car.
I still want to go winter camp before we're
You
50.
can go winter camping all you
Yeah,
want.
I
just-
will fully watch you from my log
Before
cabin.
in the next 5 years, even if it's just one night, we have to go winter
I have
camping.
done
at
winter
least once.
camping, and it is not my bag.
Oh, it's the greatest.
No. So I'm thinking if it was in the fall, you don't have all the biting bugs necessarily. You can find a spot that's not going to leave you crawl, in the morning covered in ants or something. Yeah, ultralight camping with just like a tarp set up over a mattress on the ground with your sleeping bag. I might be able to do that. But I don't know.
What about the bushcrafting guys that go? They find a hollowed out tree and they just put a blanket
The
down
problem with
and they
that
sleep
is
on.
that I'm, 45 going on 46, and that seems like an awful lot of effort.
It does, yeah.
And I don't know that I really want to.
Because I'm going up with my oldest on the last weekend in September to get to Algonquin again, and we're going to do a canoe thing in there
Well,
for,
he's young. Then you can
for
make
2
him
days.
do all the lead.
Oh, I fully intend. Yeah, the canoe needs to be out of the water.
That's what they're for.
Yeah, but this will be his first sort of camping, not at a campgroundy or like at a cottage thing. It'll be middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
See,
interesting.
I prefer to camp that way, but it's just not.
To me, that's camping.
It's
To
not
me, it's
feasible with this family. Like, I think Kira, she's outgoing enough or stubborn enough, perhaps, that she would do it. She'd be fine. I think camping with like we'd camp, but
Now, what you could
I
do
don't know about me and Deanna.
is find somewhere that has like lean-to type accommodation
Yeah.
and minimalist that way. That wouldn't be as
So you're
bad.
not worried about your enclosure necessarily. Yeah. Are you
You're-
thinking like it was at Marcy Dam?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're off the ground.
I've
You're,
often thought about going back, actually, because that was a lot of fun.
that was pretty interesting.
because I thought for our next camping trip we should find something that's a little further afield, but a cabin, or like a rough cabin as opposed to tents, and that way we're not.
Really?
It's
Huh.
yeah.
Because I was going to suggest another hiking one, just not one that's
Oh God,
as
my hips and
arduous
knees
as last time.
I would love to do. I don't know if they. I'm pretty sure they do it. I would love to do the Algonquin Old Railway line.
Yeah,
'Cause-
so railway line if you're using it as a hiking trail.
Yeah,
would be-
or even biking for that matter.
I think my biking days are over.
Marcy Dam's not that far.
It isn't that
Only
far.
3.5 hours away.
It's in the States, isn't
It
it?
is in the States, yeah. Adirondack Mountain.
Yeah, but I would like to do like an old railway bed with no tracks and just go, because some of them run for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, and you could do a 40K over 2 or 3 days. The only problem with that is you'd have to have somebody dropping you off and picking you up because it ain't a circle.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I could probably, for the next outing, I could probably do without the canoeing. Just to change it up, I guess.
Mhm.
Right? Then we don't have to, it's less expense because we don't have a canoe rental,
Yeah.
I think.
Canoe rental's only $150 really, so it's not that drastic.
Well,
But
still.
I would just like to go a little further afield and just like maybe Northern Ontario-esque stuff where they have, you're still isolated. Like maybe flying in is
I was going to
expensive,
say, like
but
a fly-in would be.
I would
rather
love to do that.
interesting.
I would love to do a fly-in because they like guys at work do them all the time, and it wouldn't be. It's not that expensive. I mean, I'm not talking 20 grand or anything, but it would be probably $700 or $800 to do. But it would be a very unique experience. I know you don't really enjoy fishing, but some of the pictures I see, those guys pulling like 30-pound northern pike out of a lake, that tickles my fancy slightly.
Did I tell you that we went ocean fishing?
Oh, really?
I'm going to say ocean fishing with there's a whole lot of I don't know what the word is. There's quotations there, and when I say ocean fishing, because
Like you're taking liberties with the term.
taking liberties, yeah, because we were just on shore on a wharf casting lines into like a by where boats would potentially come in and out, but didn't catch a damn thing.
Did you eat any seafood? Well, you had to have eaten seafood.
Of course we
while-
did, yeah. Well, you know what we did see, which is kind of neat, is an entire school of mackerel, which
Mhm.
I've never seen that before. It was weird, because you see it on TV of the ball of the bait fish that are just like undulating all in this big mass, and they were right there in Halifax off the wharf. We looked down and you could see them all. They were all about
Mhm.
that big, and there's hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them in the water.
Well, coming into
People were fishing for them.
coming into Port aux Basques on the ferry is 6:30 in the morning, and our youngest wanted to go and just see outside so we were sitting on the side of the ferry, and all these seagulls all of a sudden were just in the water, and then they would take off, and we're looking at it, and the one guy says, "Yeah, there's a whale over there." I'm looking, where's the whale? I think it was probably a pilot whale, maybe like a right whale or something, but because it wasn't a humpback, but it was big, and it was the fish were kind of, you could see where it was following them because the seagulls would go and get the fish afterwards. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, the seafood out there's like we the place we stayed at in Saint Lunaire, fresh salmon, fresh cod. So you've seen my oldest eat at Thanksgiving dinners. Well, he had fish tacos with like a full fish on a
I
tortilla,
can't
like a
do
full.
something about tacos. It shouldn't include fish.
Well,
I can't.
apparently it was delicious because he ate the whole thing without
I'm
even
sure it
thinking about
is. It's just there's something about fish in a taco that just doesn't do it for me.
it. But we had never had lobster, and when I look at the and PEI, I looked at the price of what a full lobster was. I said, I'm not gonna pay that for
Okay,
a lobster.
so
How much?
What if
How
nobody?
much
But
expensive
so
was that?
on PE,
$65.
yeah.
Wow.
So here's the story that we got. We told the kids before we left that we would make sure that we stopped at a good restaurant and we'd sit down and have a nice dinner, right? Because we might as well. We don't do it all the time. So we were in Halifax, and which was nice. It was really busy. Parts of it seemed kind of dirty, actually. I don't. It wasn't what I expected, I guess.
It doesn't have a reputation of being a very clean place.
It wasn't. It wasn't like it was. There was a lot of it was under construction, actually, but it wasn't anything like that. It was just along the waterfront. There's a section of it where it's just a warren of street food vendors and tables and umbrellas and stuff like that, but it's open air and it's inundated with birds, like little birds, seagulls, crows, and of course, what do birds do is they fly from point A to point B. They empty their bowels, right? So I mean, it wasn't pleasant there. So we decided to go to a nice restaurant, sit down inside, and have a seafood dinner, except for because she doesn't touch anything that doesn't have chicken in it or noodles or something. But anyway, um, so we chose this restaurant called the Five Fishermen. We didn't. It got good reviews. I think that was about the only thing that we did for research, and the building supposedly is haunted. So we go there, and right away I could tell this is going to be expensive because it's like walking into the keg as far as atmosphere is concerned. And all of the waiters, waitresses, hostess, they're all in like black suits and everything. And we're in like street clothes. We're not dressed up whatsoever. And, nobody says anything. It's not that kind of a place. So we go and we sit down and it's just fine dining at its finest. And I just already feeling the pocketbook cry out in pain. And but we told the kids you can have lobster. So I'm looking at the menu, and the thing about lobster is that they often don't price it. It's market price.
So,
And if you don't ask what market price is, you don't know what that meal is going to cost you until you get your bill. And we're green as far as this is concerned. So anyway, I didn't order the lobster even though I really wanted lobster because of that. I didn't know how expensive it was going to be, but we already told the kids that they could have lobster. So Kira gets her lobster dinner. I ordered a plate that had a half lobster tail on it and a few other bits of seafood, salmon and a few other things, scallops, whatever. Anyway, got our meal. Fantastic. The flavor was unbelievable. It was off the charts. Fantastic meal. And then we get the bill. And for us, it was like we consider if the four of us go to dinner, we would consider, $100 for dinner to be on the high side for us typically for four. It was over $350 for this.
probably 3-ish.
And I think Kira's lobster meal was $65 for her lobster, and then whatever else they threw on the plate. And it's just like, oh, it's a good thing this isn't every day. So anyway, we paid the bill because we had saved money for this trip.
Dine and dash.
So, but then later in PEI, we went to the southern point, I guess, kind of. Yeah, I would say the southern tip of the island to check out a lighthouse up there. And on the way back, we stopped at a beachside boardwalk, and it had a little lobster shack. Actually, that's what it's called, the lobster shack. And they're scattered all over the island. And we went there for lunch. And this was what I pictured to be a quintessential Maritimes, like, I don't know, oceanside uh, food truck almost of sorts. But it was a permanent establishment. You walk in this place, and there's 3 tanks, and it's just filled to the brim with lobster. All their claws are covered with rubber bands, but they're live. And what is it? They're separated by weight. It's like 1 pound, 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, give or take, I suppose. And you can order your lobster there by pound. And I think the one that Kira had was advertised at 1.5 pounds at that restaurant. The same lobster from this place would have been less than half the price at this lobster shack. And it's probably, I know for a fact that it's fresh because they're literally picking them out of that bin and then dropping them into the boiling water. I don't know. I can't comment. That's just how they do it. And so you're getting as fresh a lobster as you can possibly get for a fraction of the price. And it doesn't come with all the bells and whistles on the plate. Like, it's not, it's just simply cooked lobster. But if that's all you were after, half the price.
You
Yeah,
heard that
they-
right, vegan friends. They're cooked the same way your vegetables are, dropped in boiling water.
Yeah, we picked like a like an out of the way kind of like down homey kind of restaurant in PEI because with our youngest, I never know what he's going to eat. But so we had we all wanted to try lobster. I was not paying that for in case no one actually liked it. So we one of the appetizers was
If you didn't know, yeah, that would be a risk.
Well,
yeah.
there's so little on them. There's not a lot there.
Some people can't stand the texture of the lobster. So
Yeah.
we ordered there. It came with four pieces of baguette with a piece of lobster on each and like a butter sauce. So we all got them except for the little guy, and we all ate it at the same time and got the claw. This claw
Yeah.
was like this
And
big,
they can
right?
be a bit on the chewy side.
Yeah, so I had that one, and but it was I had never had it before, and it was delicious,
Oh
and I'd
no?
have it again.
Yeah.
No, never,
So I
Never had
find
lobster?
never.
the claw the
I've
claw
had
meat
haggis,
does
not lobster.
taste. It has it's a different texture for sure than the tail. The tail is more muscled, right? Because that's its I would say. So the tail can be a little bit chewier than the claws. The claws are maybe not quite
Yeah,
so. But you know, if you're not a lobster fan, as far as having the whole lobster on the plate that you then have to crack open and pick out the good stuff. Everybody is doing lobster rolls.
Mhm.
So, and we got lobster rolls actually at that lobster shack, and it's a bun that has like a picture chicken salad,
Mhm.
except instead of chicken, it's chunks of lobster.
Yep, sounds delicious.
It was good. It was really good, and
Yeah.
they do them everywhere, and
See,
not
see,
as expensive as paying for a lobster either.
See, my mother and my sister hate fish of any kind, so we just did. It wasn't something we had a lot growing up, and so yeah, I loved
Where did
I loved the lobster.
Where did it go? Was it Digby? I can't remember the town. When I did all the planning, all I did was drive. We went to the pub that the cast from Oak Island go to all the time, the Oak Island show.
I know what you mean. I have no idea what it's called though. Yeah.
And I can't remember. It actually kind of it has 2 names. I think they have. The name that they called the pub in this show is different than what they have a sign on the street in this town. And I wonder if it's because it was just a lot of the fans were wanting to just go and see the pub instead of actually going and eating there. Of course, it was right on the ocean, and they had a deck that overlooked the harbor that was at this town. I wish I could remember the name. And it was, I don't know how, I didn't ask them how old it was, but it was like some brew pub, only it was a maritime pub.
Mm.
And because they had coasters of all of the different beers and drinks that they've had, like every square inch of the ceiling had a coaster stapled to it or something like that. And I had the fish and chips there. I had fish and chips in the Maritimes a lot because it was less expensive than lobster. And man, was it ever good!
I had a PEI beef burger there, and I forget, one of my colleagues who lives there had told me that if you come here, you got to have a PEI beef burger and whatever the sauce they put on it.
Really?
It was delicious.
I stayed completely away from all non aquatic.
Well, we were
Fair,
driving
I
home.
guess.
We were driving home the next morning, and I thought to myself, I'd like something in my gullet that I know what like I know I'll be able to take it. If I eat some weird fish dish that ends up going bad, I do not want to
Yeah, I
be
mean I
doing
say that
110.
I'm not entirely truthful because I mean we use Tim Hortons a lot for breakfast and stuff, and because it's less expensive. But for lunches and dinners, yeah, it was almost always seafood while we were up there. Anyway, not that that's
Yeah.
camping related, but that's the way these things go.
Where do you want to go camping, Ryan? You can pick anywhere, anywhere, and I'll add a caveat: anywhere that's feasible to go to.
Oh, my backyard's open.
Anywhere that's feasible to go to.
Yeah, like let's say, for example, we wanted to plan a camping trip tomorrow, and you got to pick.
Well, it would probably make you happy because I think I'd like to go as far north in Canada as we can go.
Oh, let's do it. Yep. All right, I'll get the car.
I think that would be interesting to go as far that way as you could.
Provided it's not winter.
Well, it's going to be winter.
I have 3 drives. Sometimes when I'm at home and
I don't know. Some of those trips in the far north could get expensive.
Yeah, I've
Well-
often thought that would be interesting too.
so sometimes I'll sit down and I'll plot out vacations.
Somewhere
So
near Hudson Bay.
no further. So it would take about 7 days driving to get to the Yukon from here.
Oh, jeez.
And there's a place there called Destruction Bay. And I have video footage from my great uncle Carmen, who went up there in the 30s, and it's 8mm film, colored. And I'd love to go find the spot where he stayed there. It's incredible. Like he has footage of the way the natives use, like video footage of the natives harvesting salmon that are going upriver with this great big wheel apparatus, so it goes with the water and the fish get trapped in it. But it shows like all these First World War Army vets going up there from the States to go moose hunting, and it shows them on horseback going around this place. And I would love to go and do that as a camping
That
experience.
would be very interesting.
We'd need guns,
Definitely.
or just really big bear poppers.
I definitely want to go.
But that's where, like, if you're talking north, there's another really interesting one where now they have the road that goes to Goose Bay, Labrador, and it's a very, very, very long drive. And there's a national park up there. So if that's sort of what you're thinking,
Well, there are parks. I've seen a couple of different advertisements for areas like that, Northwest Territories.
mm-hmm. And there's the fly-in parks you can do, right, where it's national parks that they get like an average of 2,000 people a year, if that, get into these places because there's no way to get there. There's no road, there's no railway, there's no airport. You have to fly in on a float plane. So if that's what you're doing, I am totally
That would
down.
be very, very interesting.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to do. How long?
You'd probably have to do it like that. At least a week, if not 2
Mhm.
weeks.
Sounds interesting. Have you watched on YouTube the guy who does the solo canoeing through ridiculous terrain? I forget the lakes, but he does these northern Ontario rivers, and he goes in, I'm assuming it's spring or summer, and on the video he is getting eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Yeah, see
And
that?
he's not even phased. He's on camera. He's like, yeah, mosquitoes are pretty bad. And it's like, I don't know how he does it, but it's pretty epic.
Let's do it, I guess.
Yeah, but Yukon would be pretty
Solo
sexy to go
camping
to.
would be. It would take a little bit of getting used to it.
I don't know if I could do it, and the reason I say that is because I don't sleep as it is, and I would worry that after a couple of days I would get completely exhausted because I would be up all night just listening to sounds.
That's
But
that's what would take getting used to.
You just take like 20 milligrams of melatonin out.
Well,
You won't have a choice.
there's books about the like in the early 1800s, late 1700s with the Hudson Bay Company guys along who would come into these places near like Moose Factory or Moosonee, and about how these solo guys would get in their canoes. Oh, I need you to take a message down to York, which is Toronto. Okay, no problem. They do waterways by themselves, carrying portaging these canoes by themselves, and it takes them a lot, like weeks and sometimes months to get down there. And then they just show up. Oh, here's a message. All right, I gotta head back.
Yeah, solo camping. I'd like to say that I'd be able to do it, but I think the psychological uh, side of it would be the problem, right? Just mind wandering at night.
That's what would take getting used to.
Because you know that it's just you, and you'd be hyper focused on every little sound you hear because it's just you. And I think I'd have to set up some kind of trip line with something to make noise or
I think
just
in
to make
modern
myself feel
camping,
better.
I would probably, like in modern day, I would, like around our house, we have like these little square motion sensor lights. And they're good up to about maybe 40 feet, and the dogs trip them off all the time. I would probably put those in a cross pattern with my tent, like one focusing that way, one that way, one that way, one that way. That'd be the only way I could do it because I would be up all night. Just even when we go, like aside from your deafening snoring, the I'm listening to
Yeah,
everything I can possibly hear.
yeah, it takes
Like
a lot of us
like when that boat came really close to where we were, like there was no reason for it to be there.
And it seemed to take forever
to go
to
by.
go by.
Yeah,
Yeah, it did feel like we were being scouted.
well,
Maybe
It-
we
it
were.
pro- maybe we were. Maybe it was completely, you know, just
because my tent has those little like
innocent. But
flap things that you can look out through the rain fly just for air movement. And I got up in my tent and I looked down and I could see they didn't have any they weren't pointing any flashlights or anything at us.
I still think that there was somebody that came to the island one night while we were there. I was sure I heard somebody come to shore. But then again, the sound carries so easily at night.
Mhm.
Water, right? They could have been quite a ways away, but I was sure it sounded like there was somebody on the island. Maybe just was looking to see if it was taken, right? Something that simple.
Could have been a deer.
No, because I'm sure it was voices. It was like voices of people. It wasn't animal. Unless it's
No.
that rare talking deer variety.
That doesn't beat your encounter on our first trip with the dream you had the
No,
first
that
time.
was startling. That was odd.
I still think that same night I heard something stomping around the tents. And
I didn't hear any noises that I
It-
remember, but
whatever it
that's
was heavy enough that I could hear, you could hear the impact of something. I assume a hoof. Um,
I think it was a deer, and the reason I think it was a deer was because it didn't.
you heard that? You heard it too. I can't remember if you had said before.
You and I had talked about the morning after about that, and you said you heard something, and I thought it was Ryan going to the bathroom, and then you said no, it didn't seem like that, and then I said, well, I thought I heard a deer
'Cause it was like
afterwards.
slow. It was like
Yeah.
some. I could picture an animal with like a hooved animal taking slow, cautionary steps because it wasn't like like if one of us went out to walk, right? You would hear the rustling, the crunching of twigs and stuff. This was like a thump, almost.
It wouldn't have been a moose because you would have heard, because moose make noise all
and
the
they
time.
don't care.
And they don't care, and that's why I think it might have been just a deer,
Uh,
because there wasn't, if you remember, there wasn't much soil there because it was
That's
right on
right.
the
Yeah.
rock.
So
Yeah,
that's what you heard, like the impact
Mhm.
on the.
Yeah. But your dream, tell us about it.
Oh, yeah, it was just it was like I was awake in the tent. You know when you're on that verge of sleep, but you're not awake and you're not asleep, but
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like a
in
lucid
that
dream.
middle state. And I looked to my left, and there was a girl, probably early to mid 20s, with like a short bob blonde haircut, pointing directly at my chest and said, "I'm buried right here." And that's when I sat up. It was very, very,
And your tent was basically on a rock,
yeah, pretty much.
so there's no
There was
way
very
that.
little soil,
Yeah.
but it was
Yeah, but
still
even then, like,
really odd.
we talked about that before, and buried right here might not mean this exact spot, but like this campsite.
It could be, I don't know. She was
Maybe it was in
pointing,
Ryan. Maybe it was Ryan's
well,
heart. She was buried in Ryan's heart.
Maybe.
while I would have pointing at me, chest level, I would assume directly underneath me. That's what it felt like in the dream.
Did you get like clothing? Like, was it old style or something? Like, do you remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It didn't strike me as nothing about her clothing struck me as odd, like normal,
Hmm.
like our normal daily clothing, like this era anyway. It was very strange.
Yeah, I don't think I would sleep after that.
No, I sat up for a little bit,
I don't think I dreamt on any of our trips about anything. I just
but I
it was
don't
like it's.
typically dream that I remember.
Yeah, I'm like that. I don't remember my dreams. Sometimes, occasionally, I do. Apparently, you can learn to develop that skill. I guess if you want to call it a skill of lucid dreaming.
So I had a dream that I told like the therapist I see occasionally, and I told my sister about it. So I dreamt, and it was like I went through 20 years of life in a dream, and it was our oldest and his wife died in a car accident, and we were raising the kids. You know, we were living in my grandparents' house in near where I live now, and I can remember even now thinking about it, going to parent-teacher meetings with these kids. I can remember going to school plays with the kids, grocery shopping with the kids, Christmases with these kids, and the dreams seemed to go on for years to the point where I woke up and I was upset because I didn't know where I was because I was used to getting up in that house. And so I called my sister as soon as I woke up and said, I've had this crazy dream. Like, this is nuts. And apparently people have them like that, where it goes on. People can live.
Like reoccurring dreams or
No,
continuous.
it was I sleep an average maybe 4 hours a night if I'm lucky. Every now and then I might sleep 8 or 9, maybe. But it happened one of these nights. It was just a normal night, like a weekday, and I'm almost getting emotional just thinking about of how real it was. Like my son died in a car accident,
Well,
and I was raising his kids. It was just this. But I remember years went on. Like I retired. It was very strange.
I had a dream years ago. I would say I'm trying to think whether I was living in town or whether I was still out in the country at home. I think I was in town, and it was how do I describe it? It was bizarre in the sense that it was like normal. In the and by normal I mean I dreamt that I owned a house, and this house was like I could describe this place to you still, and it's been 20 some years since I had this dream because it's so real. I could even probably describe the layout of the house. Like it was nestled down into a little bit of a valley, and there was a road, or it was the driveway, I guess, that came down a hill around the side of the house, and there was a big giant um, stone open outdoor kitchen there with an overhanging uh, uh, deck, and then herbs and other things hanging from it. You could go in through the door right there. There was a little kitchenette off to the one side. There was a little staircase that went up to the second floor where there was several rooms, bedrooms. There was another floor because it was a three-story house, and up there was a big, massive room that was kind of like stepped down to like a theater almost towards a big bay window, um, and to this day, like I remember at some point waking up after having this dream, feeling like I should know where this place is. Like
Mhm.
I've been there before, right? And it almost as if I should somehow be finding it. And I don't know. It was probably the most lifelike dream that I've ever had. To this day, I can still picture it.
I remember reading the story with the guy who, I'm gonna get the places mixed up, but he's at a college or university, and he gets hit or he falls. Anyway, he goes through this dream where he has kids and everything like that, and then the one apparently in the dream he's looking at a lamp or a light post or something, and there's something odd about it. He can't figure out what it is, and then he turns it on, and then he wakes up and he's actually on the ground on the pavement in front of his college, that he's fallen or someone's hit him or something like that, and he had a head injury. But he could recount years of life.
Yeah, and would pass a polygraph too, like
Yeah.
because it was.
And that's how my dream felt that I had. I've had a few like that in my life, but yeah, like I've had dreams where I go into my grandparents' house where I live, where we got ready for my wedding, if you can recall the red brick house, and I'm walking in the front door, and my grandfather, my grandmother, who are long dead, and my stepdad, who's long dead, are sitting there, and they look up at me and says, "Oh, we're so glad you're finally here." And then in the dream, I'm terrified that I've died in my sleep and I can't wake up. And then usually I'll wake up just normally at some point, but they're rationalizing with me that, oh, everything's fine, you're here now, and the life will go on without you and stuff. And I've had those dreams a lot.
Well, this house I was telling you about that I dreamt of, like I could even tell you on the second floor of the house where the bedrooms were. One bedroom was in serious disrepair. It was an old home. Um, and in the dream, like we somehow owned it. I say we because I don't think it was just me there, but I don't know who was there with me. Um, but then the bathroom that was between the master bedroom and the guest bathroom was this huge room, divided in half and with like a low partition wall. And on one half there was this big giant circular shower with a big circular um, uh, curtain. And then on the other side of the partition wall was like a giant bathtub, like a like like the four-legged type,
Clawfoot tub.
like yeah, like a clawfoot tub in there, and it was all tile and everything. Which little details like that, I just still remember. Even though I think it's completely made up, I don't know where it comes from.
So when I worked at the call center here, there was a guy there who would have, according to him, would have recurring dreams that he was in a submarine, and he was loading torpedoes in a very old style submarine, and all of a sudden they were hit and the water came in and he drowned. This guy claimed to have this dream all the time. He also claimed that there were certain things in the dream that stood out, like that he couldn't understand people were saying, and that he thought they were speaking German. And so something on the submarine was specific, and he was able to say that this. Then he looked it up, and the submarine was torpedoed off the coast of wherever it was. I forget now, but he thinks that it was like a past life, like energy resurgence, that he was reliving that moment over and over and over and over and over again. He said the same dream all the time, and he wasn't crazy or anything. Just interesting stories that he would tell about this particular dream, and that I don't know, residual energy. So that house could be, maybe you were there in a past life.
Yeah, I remember it being in relative disrepair, and the time spent at this house um, was spent trying to fix it up a lot. And there was two bathrooms on that second floor. The one was like an ensuite, I guess. That was the big one. And then the other one was like the guest bathroom. The guest bathroom was in a bad state of repair and always had water leaks. I remember that. I never got it fixed. In the dream, I guess. I don't know. Weird.
Somewhere it's still
It
dripping water.
probably it is bizarre because it feels so real even now.
So is that your only crazy dream then with the girl?
Don't remember really any other dreams. One I used to have in high school was I would get up and go through my entire morning routine,
I've had that.
and then wake up and realize I have to do it all over again and get mad because I have to do it all over again.
Oh yeah.
But no, I don't remember dreaming a lot.
Well,
I have them. I just don't remember them.
I find that I dream more between my alarm and my snooze going off again than I do the whole night before in most cases. Usually it's about 6 o'clock. The alarm goes off. I hit the snooze immediately because I'm lazy, and then I can have what feels like an 8-hour dream in that
Well,
10-minute
I think
span.
you'll find that that's pretty common because I think most people, those dreams you end up remembering
Hmm.
are the ones you have right before you wake up. And that is whenever I have a dream that seems vivid that I seem to remember, at least remember for a time after I wake up, it's always been just before I wake up. Or rather, I'm having a dream and then I woke up and so therefore remember what I was dreaming about.
It's a fascinating thing. I wonder if we'll ever figure out, or science
Oh.
rather, would.
But it makes you wonder though, if dreams can feel so real, you can't help but wonder just how real is it if your mind is able to convince itself that it's real, right? Like, you know,
Well, that's
maybe it is in a way, in a manner of speaking or a manner of perspective.
Mhm.
If your mind is convinced that this happened and that it's real, then maybe perhaps it is.
the argument that we're all stuck in a simulation.
Right. Yeah. Or, you know, that the universe, what's the other argument? That the universe is actively being created separately for every individual as you live it, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
like you are existing in the universe is being built as you live it from your perspective.
So I had a conversation with somebody about this a long
To
time
say
ago,
otherwise.
and it came around to what do babies dream? And it was his theory that everything you're dreaming has happened to you at some point before, and you just can't remember it that it happened, and that's why vivid dreams seem so real, and your brain is filling in gaps with things you recognize in certain situations. So dogs dream, supposedly. Cats dream. You've seen them twitch at night, right? If babies are dreaming, what are they dreaming about? Especially since they can't, when they're born at first, they can't see more than, what, a foot and a half till their eyes develop a little more. What the heck are they dreaming about? Because they do dream, because they've put the where the scan is on their brain, and the same parts of the brain that are active when we sleep are active when they sleep. So what are they dreaming about? Because sometimes they wake up screaming and crying. So they're dreaming about something.
It's funny too.
I would imagine it would be just a pure emotion, fear.
But of
Happy.
what though?
I don't know.
Because some people say that babies don't develop a fear on their own; that the fear is developed by like nature versus nurture kind of situation. That like a baby with a parent that doesn't care doesn't develop the same fear
I
as
don't
other people.
know. I would argue that the moment that
When do they start to hear?
the moment an infant becomes
Great question.
conscious of, and I don't know when that occurs.
That's a whole other argument.
I know it is, but it's like
It goes back to the
we'll
Democratic
say-
National Convention.
we'll say post birth, right? Like as parents, right? We shower a baby with toys, whether that be a teddy bear or a blanket or something like that. We all do it. It could be that simple, like a baby dreams of its teddy bear, right?
But babies,
or something like
it's
that, or it's a feeling more so than an actual.
but I could be wrong, and I'll have to look this up. It's several weeks before a baby can even discern fine detail with their eyes, so they don't even know what they're looking at.
Depends on the age, I guess, that you want to
Yeah.
talk about. But I'm
And
not
that
qualified,
that
but
leads to another
a lot of
interesting
speculation here.
question. If you're born blind, What are your dreams like?
Yeah.
Because a
'Cause
lot of it is visual.
You've never
right?
seen. All my dreams have been visual.
Mhm.
Not so much auditory, but definitely visual.
I've had dreams where I'm in darkness, complete darkness, and I'm hearing people calling my name from certain directions, and I'm trying to sort it out. And I've had a lot of those kind of dreams. And then I wake up, and it's a dark room, and I don't know if I've been sleeping or not. And I remember at our old house, if you can remember the door, and then there's the steps that went up to like the main level. I had a dream once that my stepfather was standing in the hallway, and everything went black. And then the lights came on, and I could hear him walking down the steps. And he'd been dead for 10 years at this point. And I actually got out of bed, scared the hell out of your sister, and I ran to the top of the steps calling his name because I thought I was still dreaming. And that's how real the dream was. And she thought I had gone crazy.
Yeah,
That's
I don't-
interesting.
But it was complete dark at that first, and all of a sudden he was standing in the doorway, and that's why I thought that I was asleep. When
the vast majority of lucid, well, I don't even know if they were lucid dreams.
That's interesting.
The dreams that I remember, I only remember for a short time. And I don't, it's only the one of this house that seemed to have stuck with me for years and years, and I don't know why. But most other dreams are gone after a few hours, and I just don't remember them anymore.
it's a fascinating thing.
When I stayed at Grandma and Grandpa's for a while. It was after Grandpa left, was gone. And I don't remember which dog it was that we had.
Which grandparents? Sorry.
Bark.
Sorry. Okay.
But I was there in his room, and that's where I stayed. We had to put a dog down. I don't remember which one it was. If it was Brutus?
Spike?
No, it was long after him. Oh,
Kayla?
no,
Cricket?
it was either Cricket, but I don't think it was Cricket. I think it was Brutus. Because when I'd lay on the couch or my bed, he would jump up and lay along my back. And that's kind of how he would sleep. So I went after work and laid down. I was tired. I was falling asleep. And I remember feeling a dog get on the bed and lay down along my back.
Hmm.
Do you know when you're there, like Taz, when he gets on the bed, you can feel the
The weight,
springs?
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I was in that stage between sleep and awake. It was very strange.
Fascinating. I have that sometimes with the cats, where the cats will jump up on the bed, or I think they've jumped up on the bed, and then I'll put my hand down to where I think they are, and there's nothing. And I know for sure
Felt
something has jumped
down
up on the bed.
Yeah. It was very
And
weird.
it's
Well, that's a nightly occurrence for us because Basil likes to jump up on the bed, but then all he really wants to do is get to the headboard so he can sit on the headboard and stare at the backyard because the window's open.
But there is the
So-
theory that your dreams are part of a shared consciousness. I've heard that theory as well.
Mhm.
Which is,
So what you're dreaming is potentially what somebody else has went through.
What fascinates me is how real people's faces can be in dreams that you've never seen before, or at least
I don't
in
know if I've ever
your
experienced
cognizance.
anything like that.
I will have. I can meet people in my dreams that are as real as you're sitting right there that I don't recognize them at all, and I'm wondering if it's just somebody I've seen on a bus or
Yeah.
somebody I've seen on a train or something. But
Or AI
Yeah.
has constructed it for you, and it's just
Maybe.
a made-up individual.
maybe, yeah, it's the only reason I don't agree with the like I love a good conspiracy theory, but I don't agree with this the whole shared consciousness stuff because prior to the invention of science fiction, like as a medium, nobody ever thought that would be possible, and that people have been around for so long, and people have been dreaming for so long before, and no one ever like that conclusion didn't have any merit for millennia until somebody came along and started writing about aliens and science fiction and stuff like that,
Except
right?
for
Like
your
that was
indigenous or Native Americans, their spirit ancestors were talked about, which could potentially be a shared form of consciousness.
okay, fair.
Yeah,
I would say that would be more interdimensional situation, right? Like between the spirit world and, or what we would think of as the spirit world.
It's not
And
really
it's-
that much different, though, if you think about it in concept, anyway.
No.
Like between a shared consciousness.
Sure, why not?
Well, shared consciousness would imply that, like it's at the beginning of Third Eye on Enema. Tool has Maynard talking about, he's pretending to be a news guy, and he says, a young man tripping on acid discovered that we are all one consciousness, and he says, and here's Tom with the weather. But I don't know. It's interesting. Like when you read about like what people saw, like what people claim to have seen while high on drugs. Like they like the U.S. government did a lot of experimenting with LSD and stuff like that. The stuff that people claim to see that they would have no knowledge of.
Altered consciousness.
And I don't know if that means like a all one consciousness, or are they just picking up on, is their brain picking up on residual energy, like
That I could see.
like 5G, for example. The fact that right now information about what the three of us idiots are doing is being broadcast over the web by wireless. Who's to say the next door neighbor, who maybe their frontal lobe is slightly different than ours, isn't receiving this information in their brain and is going to have dreams about this at some point?
Well, it's
Because it's data,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's microwave data.
energy. The energy thing is interesting because you can walk into a room after two people have fought. They can say nothing to you. They
And
can
you
sit
know.
on their couch and not be moving, and you know something's wrong.
Mhm.
You just pick up on it. You can feel the negativity, and that's always been interesting.
Yeah, I've read stories about that, like with cops and with paramedics, where they can go into a room and they know that something horrible's happened in this
Well,
room.
that
right off the bat.
happens, and not so much lately, but you know, here at the house, if one of the kids or Deanna's in a bad mood, like I know it, that nothing needs to be said. Like it does, it just you just feel it, like you say, and whether it's in mannerisms or a difference in the
It's
way
energy.
that they walk, maybe, or it's just like you say, it's just projecting their mood that you happen to pick up on it all the time. I can tell when somebody's in a sour mood just by being in the vicinity of them.
Wow. Big tip off this fair women. So. And we're back to misogyny.
It always
But-
comes back to this.
But
That was
what-
a joke.
what-
That was a disclaimer. Disclaimer is it's I'm kidding.